Beth, thank you for taking care of my daughter for the past month. I'll come to pick her up tomorrow.
What are you talking about? While Kathy, my sister-in-law who had been traveling for a whole month, was still at the airport, I could hear the announcements in the background on the other end of the phone. Unlike my calm response, she started to panic.
Huh? No way! What are you talking about? She's there with you, right? I left Emily in your apartment's parking lot.
Emily is her daughter, which means she's my niece. I haven't seen her. When did this supposedly happen?
Don't play dumb. I sent you a message, so you must know.
I didn't receive any messages.
No way. That's impossible.
Kathy, now in a panic, let out a high-pitched scream over the phone.
What are you going to do about this? I left Emily with you. You have to take responsibility if something happens.
After that, Kathy hung up and tried calling Emily's child's smartphone but couldn't get through, making her even more frantic. She called me back in a rush, shouting even more, so I suggested she go back home first.
You know what? You're right. That's a good idea.
She hung up and hurried back home, but what she found there was Steve, Emily, and me. Kathy mouthed wordlessly, seemingly wanting to ask why the three of us were together.
Kathy, I've heard everything from these two.
What?
Hearing Steve's words, Kathy was taken aback and turned pale. My name is Beth. Until a few years ago, I worked in an office. At the age of 40, I decided to go independent and started working as a freelance illustrator. With my income increasing, I now live alone in an apartment. My work is mostly done from home, and I only go out occasionally for groceries or meetings with clients. I'm not married and don't have a boyfriend, but I'm still satisfied with my life. Friends sometimes ask if I get lonely, but I've never thought about it that way. I'm more fulfilled by my work, so I don't plan to look for a partner in the future. I do worry a little about my old age, but I think I'll deal with that when the time comes. In that sense, I sometimes surprise myself by how optimistic I am. Today, after finishing the deadline for one illustration, I took a short break at 3 p.m. and looked at the calendar. Then I suddenly realized that my brother's birthday was just around the corner. My brother, Steve, who is 5 years older than me, works as a salesman for a major publishing company and often goes on long business trips. As a result, he sometimes brings me souvenirs from his trips. Last month, he casually stopped by my place with some souvenir cookies, so I invited him in and made coffee, and we ate together. You don't need to bring me anything. You should buy more for Kathy and Emily.
But I have to come to see you sometimes, too. I don't want you to collapse or something.
Whether it's overprotective or just caring, that has always been one of my brother's good traits. Kathy and Emily are Steve's wife and daughter, respectively, making them my sister-in-law and niece. Although I never tell Steve, I find Kathy a bit hard to deal with. She's very cheerful, always stylish with her nails and trendy fashion, and gives off a very glamorous impression. There's nothing wrong with that, and I don't mind it much, but she always seems to look down on me for being single. Even during a family gathering at Christmas, when she found out I didn't have a partner or even a boyfriend, she laughed out loud.
Hey, do you think you're so young and beautiful that you can put off marriage? Do you even know what a marriageable age is?
I believe marriage and relationships are personal choices. I don't think everyone needs to have a partner. When I responded like that, Kathy laughed out loud again. I don't know if it was the alcohol or what, but she kept teasing me about the same thing, and I got tired of dealing with it. One of my conditions for choosing an apartment was to find a place far from my brother's house, as I was fed up with her. However, I got along well with my niece, Emily. Emily, who is turning 10 this year, apparently goes to school with a cute light blue backpack. I haven't seen it myself, but she told me about it when she visited my home once.
Beth, you're so good at drawing.
Emily, watching me work on my illustrations, was thrilled as she looked at the drawings on my computer screen.
I wish I could draw too.
Oh, do you want to try?
Can I?
Yes. I still have plenty of time before the deadline, so you can try a little. Emily sat in front of the computer and eagerly started drawing. What she drew on the screen was her light blue backpack. She also mentioned that it was heavy because she had to carry a tablet as well. In the summer, she had to carry a water bottle, making it even heavier. I was really impressed by how hardworking Emily was despite being so small. According to Emily, Kathy lives as a housewife, and when Steve is away on business trips, she spends her time as she pleases. For dinner and lunch on school holidays, they buy and eat meals from grocery stores or supermarkets.
I always do the laundry, and sometimes Mom does it.
Really?
Yes. And on days when we have PE, she gets really angry if there's any mud on my shoes.
Why? What does your mom do at home?
She's always on her smartphone or watching TV.
To avoid upsetting her mother, Emily stays in her room or goes to the park or library. Hearing this, I feel concerned about Kathy as a parent, but I hesitate to interfere as an outsider. There was another time when we had a family gathering, and I saw Kathy harshly scolding Emily, who is usually quiet. I think she spilled some tea, but it was something that could have been easily wiped up with a cloth, and I thought it was unnecessary to get so angry.
Mom is scary. She gets mad no matter what I say, so I can't say anything.
Her words as she left that day, when she had drawn the light blue backpack for me, stuck in my mind like a splinter. I remembered that it was a sunny weekend day when Kathy left Emily with me, saying she was going on a day trip with her friends. I never imagined that a few days later, I would receive a similar message on my smartphone. It was around the time when the leaves in the nearby park had fully turned red, and the cold made me long for the sunlight. As I was returning to my apartment after running some errands, I saw a small figure standing alone next to the parking lot. She was wearing a light blue backpack and had a mask covering half her face, but I recognized her immediately. Emily? When I called out, her anxious eyes looked at me. It was indeed Emily. What are you doing here alone? And with all that luggage? A small carry-on suitcase was sitting beside her, making it look like she had run away from home.
Mom told me to go to your house.
Seeing the question marks forming above my head, Emily pointed to my bag and said, "On your phone." Maybe there was a message on my smartphone. I hurriedly took out my phone from my bag, and sure enough, there was a message from Kathy.
Beth, sorry for the sudden notice. I'm going on a month-long trip with a friend, so please take care of my daughter.
Reading this, a bewildered "huh" escaped my lips, but I quickly closed my mouth. Of course, I was confused, but I decided to bring the equally confused Emily into my apartment first. Once inside, Emily took off her mask, revealing cheeks as red as apples and very cold hands. I prepared some hot cocoa to warm her up and offered some snacks while listening to her story. She had been spending time in her room drawing in her notebook when Kathy suddenly entered without knocking, handed her a carry-on suitcase, and said,
Emily, get ready to go to Beth's house. I'm not going to be home for a month, so take your backpack too. Got it?
Okay.
Emily hurriedly packed her notebook, pencil case, textbooks, tablet, and other things into her backpack. Meanwhile, Kathy was on the phone with someone, sounding very excited.
Really? That's great. Hey, wait a minute. You're already drinking? That's too early.
Her cheerful voice echoed through the house, sounding very different from her usual self. Emily covered her ears as she heard her mother's laughter from downstairs. After the call ended, Kathy returned to her usual voice, put Emily and her luggage into the car, and left her at that place. When Emily got out of the car, Kathy said,
I'm leaving you with Beth for a month, so be good.
and told her to wait there. Emily had been waiting for me under the cold sky. Thinking about how she could catch a cold, I felt a surge of anger. But does my brother, I mean, your father, know about this?
I don't think so. Mom doesn't seem to communicate with Dad much.
She said while munching on chocolate cookies. Seeing crumbs on her cheeks, I thought it was cute, but also felt it was wrong not to inform my brother about the situation, so I decided to call him later.
Beth, I don't want to stay with Mom anymore.
Emily suddenly said while staring at the edge of her juice cup. She had a troubled expression that was unusual for a 10-year-old girl, who had been happily eating cookies just moments ago. Why?
Because Mom gets angry easily, throws trash cans at me, and I hate it.
She throws trash cans?
Even when I haven't done anything wrong. She tells me to get out of the way and throws things at me. The teachers at school don't believe me when I tell them, and I hate it.
Large tears started falling from her eyes. She continued crying uncontrollably, and I spent the time soothing her and offering tissues until she calmed down. It was clear that what was happening to her was not normal. I decided to call Steve and see if he could come back. I stepped away and operated my smartphone out of Emily's sight, planning how to explain the situation to my brother. An idea came to me. All right, this should work. I whispered and called my brother.
What? Emily is. Yeah. What's going on?
He sounded quite shaken, his voice trembling slightly as he listened to my explanation. At first, he tried to dismiss it as a joke, but he eventually believed me and listened to the whole story. When I shared my plan, Steve agreed and said he would help by adjusting his work schedule and taking time off. Okay, please. I'll take care of Emily. I hung up the phone, deleted the message from Kathy, and returned to the living room, wondering if Emily had calmed down. I decided to treat her to something nice for dinner tonight, thinking about what to make as I took one step at a time back to her. Although Emily's school is a bit far from here, I explained the situation to the school, and they arranged for her to take the bus. This should make it easier for her to carry her heavy backpack with the tablet. I planned to bill Steve later for the bus pass, and I continued working from home as usual during the day. Emily wasn't enrolled in any after-school activities or programs, so she would come home after school and do her homework.
Beth, can you check my homework?
I was surprised, thinking that the teacher would normally do that, but Emily explained it wasn't the case.
My classmates all have their moms check it. I did mine by myself.
Realizing just how self-centered Kathy was, I picked up the red pen. After finishing grading her worksheets, it was time to prepare dinner. Whenever I went into the kitchen, Emily would follow me, eagerly indicating with her eyes that she wanted to help. Tonight we're making meatloaf. Could you start by peeling the onions?
Sure.
Emily quickly peeled the onions and followed my cooking instructions efficiently. I wondered where she had learned to cook but didn't have time to ask as we quickly finished making the meal. As these daily routines continued happily, a month passed in no time. Anticipating it was about time, I looked at the calendar, and sure enough, my smartphone rang with a call from Kathy.
Beth, thank you for taking care of my daughter for this past month. I'll pick her up tomorrow.
What are you talking about? I replied calmly. Having been on vacation for a month, Kathy was still at the airport, as I could hear announcements in the background.
What do you mean? I left Emily at your apartment, so you must know where she is.
I haven't seen her. When did you supposedly leave her here?
Don't play dumb. I sent you a message, so you can't say you don't know.
I didn't receive any messages. Are you sure you didn't leave her with someone else?
That's impossible. I know I left her with you.
Kathy, clearly panicking, started screaming on the phone.
How could you do this? I left Emily with you. You better take responsibility if anything happens to her. I'm calling Emily now.
She angrily hung up after shrieking and then called back again, still yelling. She had tried calling Emily's child phone but couldn't reach her, causing her to panic even more. Kathy, maybe you should go home and calm down.
You're right. That's a good idea. I'm going home.
As she was about to hang up, I overheard her arguing with another person, seemingly a man, but I couldn't make out the details. The room fell silent again, like the calm before a storm. Eventually, when Kathy returned home, she rushed down the hallway with loud, heavy footsteps. As she opened the door and entered the living room, her face, previously contorted in fury with hair disheveled like a demon, suddenly turned pale upon seeing Steve, Emily, and myself gathered there. Kathy seemed to want to say something, her mouth opening and closing in shock, but no words came out. Steve spoke up.
Kathy, I heard everything from these two. Also, the phone call earlier.
What?
Kathy replied. I put the phone on speaker so everyone could hear. It seemed easier for the conversation we need to have. By the way, Emily's smartphone was turned off, so it was natural she couldn't be reached.
What were you thinking, doing something like that?
Kathy exclaimed. The irony is rich coming from you. I said I didn't know earlier, but Emily has been staying with me for a month. Suddenly going on a trip and leaving a child unattended in front of someone else's house. What were you thinking?
I left a message though.
That's not the issue. Steve then spoke calmly, choosing his words carefully.
Both of you, calm down. Kathy, it's true you went on a trip leaving Emily behind. Your appearance and luggage suggest you just got back.
Kathy was wrapped in a warm coat, dressed neatly as if for going out. Her suitcase was bursting with items, likely souvenirs and clothes she had bought.
It's true I went on a trip, but I'm a housewife too, you know? I needed a break. Doing laundry and cooking every day, it's repetitive and stressful. Can't you understand? Let me go out with my friends.
Are these friends the same ones in these emails? I handed over several printed sheets. They contained email exchanges between Kathy and what appeared to be her affair partner, discussing plans like trips and outings, not just recently but since early last spring. On the day I took care of Emily, Kathy had gone cherry blossom viewing with this person. Her day trip with her friends was a blatant lie. Kathy covered her mouth as if to say oops. Actually, a few hours before Kathy arrived, I had checked the computer she uses, at Emily's request, and found this evidence in her email inbox. Emily had noticed her mother frequently staring at her smartphone, exchanging messages. But at some point, she began suspecting the other person might not be her father. Her suspicion turned into certainty when she saw a message on her mom's phone while she was asleep in the living room. It was from a man whose name she didn't know. She had heard the occasional voice on the phone, but it wasn't her father's. I had heard about her mother's affair half a year ago. Until a month ago, I had been half skeptical when Kathy suddenly said she was going on a trip, but after checking the computer just now, I realized Emily's intuition was correct. Looking at Steve, he was quietly but visibly shaking his shoulders.
What have you done? I trusted you. You left Emily with Beth, claiming you went on a vacation.
With clenched fists trembling, Steve confronted Kathy.
No! You are misunderstanding! I was forced to go on that trip because of him.
Forced? Is that why you left this house for a month? Come up with a better excuse.
I was being threatened. Believe me. Emily, you believe me, don't you?
Suddenly put on the spot, Emily responded calmly and steadily.
Mom, you were on the phone before you left, and you seemed really happy. Plus, you made me do all the cooking and cleaning, while you just laze around and sleep.
Emily glared at Kathy, her lips pursed in defiance.
You told me to go to bed early, but you went out late at night and came back in the morning, then slept on the floor. You were being totally hypocritical.
Steve, hearing this, pressed further.
Going out at night? Does that mean you were out partying?
No way! Emily, stop talking!
I quickly showed Steve a photo on my smartphone. It was a picture of Kathy, dressed flamboyantly, leaving late at night. This was taken a few months ago. Emily contacted me, and I happened to be nearby and took this photo. I was shocked too. Where were you going at that hour, Kathy?
Oh no.
Seeing the photo, Kathy realized she couldn't talk her way out of this and collapsed to the floor.
I can't believe this. I can't leave Emily with you anymore. Let's get divorced. I'll demand alimony. From now on, you can enjoy your life with that other guy.
Steve turned his back on Kathy, his shoulders slumped.
Why? Divorce? You can't be serious. Don't you think it's pitiful for Emily not to have a mother? What about Emily? Hey, help me, Emily.
No. Absolutely not. I'd rather have Beth than a mom like you.
It felt embarrassing to see her begging her own child. While I took care of Emily, I tried to spend as much time with her as possible, talking about school, hobbies, and her future. Of course, cooking together was one of those things. Don't worry, Kathy. I'll make Emily happy. With a smile, I said, and Kathy slumped, saying nothing more. Half a year later, their divorce was finalized, and Steve gained custody. Kathy, dragged by her parents, returned to her hometown. By the way, the man she had an affair with online disappeared as soon as he found out about Kathy's divorce, and they couldn't communicate anymore. When she realized she had been played, it was too late. All that remained for Kathy was paying a hefty settlement and child support. Her savings alone weren't enough, so she had to rely on her parents for more than half of it. However, this led to stricter monitoring by her parents, and she couldn't go out late at night anymore. Moreover, rumors spread throughout the neighborhood that she had divorced without taking her own daughter, so she rarely went out of the house during the day. Still, she couldn't avoid working forever, so someday she would have to re-enter society, but neither Steve, Emily, nor I knew what would happen after that. Steve decided to rent out their old house and move to another floor in the apartment where I live now. He plans to use the rent for mortgage repayments and savings for Emily. I started visiting them almost every day. Steve couldn't be near Emily due to frequent business trips and neglecting his family. He reflected on concentrating too much on work and decided to change jobs. It must have been tough to switch careers in his 40s, but his sales performance was outstanding, and his communication skills were high. It wasn't surprising he received job offers from 2 or 3 companies and started working at one of them. I didn't know Steve's abilities that well, and I was surprised, but he had always preferred field sales at his previous company and gently declined promotion talks.
I didn't find it interesting to stay on the same floor of the same company all the time.
For that reason? But the new job is fully remote, right?
That's right, but I think it's interesting to talk to various people. And above all, being with Emily is the best.
Emily still carries a light blue backpack and goes to school. Moving changed her school district, and Emily had to transfer schools. She must have been sad to say goodbye to her close friends and teachers, but surprisingly, she seemed calm and even enjoyed her new school life. Emily, are you used to your new school? While cooking dinner together, I asked, and Emily chuckled softly.
Yeah. I made a friend in the next class.
Already? That was fast. Emily nodded shyly.
Yeah, I'm going to her house next time to make meatloaf.
That sounds fun.
Yeah.
Seeing her smile brightly like a flower in bloom, I couldn't help but smile too. Her dream for the future is to open a restaurant. Even though she's only 10, I think it's great that she already has such a solid dream. Emily told me the reason.
That friend is like me. Her mom doesn't cook for her, so she cooks herself. That's why she said she wants to cook for people who don't have someone like us to cook for them.
I see.
I want to be like that too. So we're practicing making meatloaf.
Her innocent smile briefly stirred my heart, leaving me with indescribable feelings, but I quickly put on a smile and said, "That's great. Emily's meatloaf will be delicious. I hope many people get to taste it."
Hee hee.
Right now, looking ahead, Emily seemed brave and shining brightly. Her dream won't end as just a fantasy or a delusion. I'm looking forward to the day when Emily grows up and opens her own restaurant. How did you like this story? Please subscribe to the channel too. Well then, let's meet again in the next video.